Welcome to MI Radio's Myanmar Today. I'm Melody, and here are today's reports. Online booking for Pagodas may be solution after lifting restrictions. Tax collection of first 6 months of FY reported to Pyidaungsu Hluttaw. Automobile industries changing drastically after the COVID-19's impact. Group of companies donates negative pressure ambulance. Before we get to the reports, let's take a look at the featured local news for today. ASEAN-China Transport Ministers' special meeting on COVID-19 was held through video conferencing on Thursday. At the meeting, ministers from ASEAN member states and the People's Republic of China discussed COVID-19 response. Union Minister for Transport and Communications, Wu participated in the meeting and discussed the condition of COVID-19 outbreak in Myanmar, carrying out the task with the leadership of the National Level Central Committee for Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19. Preventive measures for the passengers in air route, waterway, rail and road transportation, allowing flying of relief and special flights. Undertaking the task in line with COVID-19 economic relief plan to reduce the impacts on the economy. The union minister also said it needs to draft work guidelines that are agreed by all nations to implement effectively cross-border transport in the region. The meeting also discussed cooperation between ASEAN and China and also issued joint statement of ASEAN-China transport ministers on ensuring smooth transport and logistics to combat COVID-19 and reactive the economy in regard with the programs that should be undertaken by the transport sector in the COVID-19 post-period. On the front page of 500 Jet Banknote that will be issued on the 19th of July this year, the picture of Pyidaungsu is printed, and on the back of the page, the building of the Central Bank of Myanmar is printed. The security string is inserted from top to bottom. The new 500 Jet Banknote with the picture of Pyidaungsu will be distributed from the banks starting from the 21st of July. The existing 500 Jet note, which is in circulation, will continue to be legal tender currency. And I believe it's time now for our first report. Pagodas and other religious sites in Myanmar have been temporarily closed starting from the 9th of April until the present time for the purpose of protecting and taking precautionary measures. But as the easement of restrictions will hopefully be considering near the end of July, Pagoda's respective board of trustees have been looking forward a solution to avoid crowding on pagodas by implementing an online booking system. Our reporter David Tanner got all the details of it.
Myanmar pagodas, which are stupas that typically house Buddhist relics, including relics associated with Buddha, are the huge part of Buddhism. As unfortunate events of COVID-19 occurred as pandemic all over the world, pagodas and other religious sites in Myanmar have been temporarily closed starting from 9th of April until the present time for the purpose of protecting and taking precautionary measures. Speaking to MI Radio about the implementation and the purpose of online registration, Wu Tanzo, member of Shurigon Pagoda Board of Trustees, said,
Security system ဆိုတာအဓိကတော့ကျန်းမာရေးအတွက်ပေါ့နော်လူစုလူဝေးဟိုဖျားပေါ်မှာမဖြစ်ဖို့အတွက်အဓိက
We can only reopen Shurigon Pagoda depending on the instructions of the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Culture and the Ministry of Health and Sports. We are arranging for the online booking system to avoid the crowds of the worshippers on the pagodas. It is some kind of online registration. Possibly there will be many people people who come to Pagoda as usual without registering. We're going to allow those walk-in worshippers to register directly and immediately. In fact, we intend to record those who are coming to Pagoda and when and where they come from. By doing so, we can trace those people if something happens. We also have to decide how many people will be allowed to come to Pagoda via online and also walk-in worshippers.
လို့ရမှာပါနော်လူဘယ်နှယောက်တက်ခွင့်ပေးမယ် online ဘယ်လောက်တက်ခွင့်ပြုမယ်နော် walk in ဘယ်လောက်တက်ခွင့်ပြုမယ်နော်ဘယ်မုတ်တရားတက်ခွင့်ပြုမယ်နော်လူကြီးဘယ်လောက်တက်ခွင့်ပြုမလဲဆိုတာဆုံးဖြတ်ကြမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
We will hear out the changes and improvements that will be occurring after the possible relaxation of restriction. Utan Nai U, patron of Suli Pagoda Board of Trustees.
One of the ideas that we have discussed in depth was about the limitation of visitors for Pagoda in a healthy way, which is to make an online booking system in which limited visitors can register and sign in per day to come visit the pagoda and spread the visitors per hour scale throughout the day to avoid crowds and to exercise social distancing. Shwedagon Pagoda was the first priority for adopting that system. For Suli Pagoda, we will also be working around the development of the webpage to help draw up the healthy guidelines for the visitors and new normal limitations such as social distancing and other necessaries for good. For the inner part of the Suli Pagoda, it has already been facilitated and equipped with the tools such as temperature scanners, caution signboard regarding COVID-19, as well as the guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Sports. We have also fully educated the pagoda's volunteers and workers to follow the guidelines. We will also have to limit the visitors to about 200 visitors at the pagoda. Visitors may have to wait before going inside the pagoda until the limit has been reached. We are really cautious about the second wave of COVID-19 and are really wary of that. We won't be taking any risky action before the situations become usual and controllable. I'm guessing here that there will be some changes after the 15th of July.
I have also asked the perspective of one of the religious person, Do Jin Tao from Leidang Can, for her opinion on the temporary closure of Shwedagon Pagoda and other religious sites and her take on possible reopening of Shwedagon Pagoda after the relaxation of strict regulations.
အခုကနည်းနည်းဟိုယောဂနည်းနည်းဟိုပါနေတယ်လို့ဖြစ်တော့ဒါရဲ့ဟိုမတက်တယ်လို့တက်တယ်မတက်တယ်လို့တော့မတက်ဘူး
As you know, the first wave of COVID-19 is in recovery state now. Some people wear masks, but some people don't. But I am still very cautious of the second wave. That is why I always follow the rules and regulations to prevent as much as I can. For the pagoda temporarily closing, I am very neutral about it, as it is to prevent forming crowds in those famous religious sites. But I am still really looking forward for the reopening of Shwedagon Pagoda in a really preventive way from COVID-19. I wish people following those rules for the greater good of our country and the people.
အဲမမဟုတ်တာဟိုအချိန်တွေကပဲကြည့်အောင်ပေါ့ခလေးတွေနဲ့သွားလို့ဆိုတော့
Reporter David Tanner reporting from Myanmar International Radio.
That's the report on online booking for pagodas may be solution after lifting restrictions. The Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry reported on the tax collection by the union ministries for the first 6 months of 2019 to 2020 fiscal years. The tax amount collected for the first 6 months reaches 126 of the estimated tax. But it is expected that the tax collection for the whole fiscal year cannot meet the targeted amount because of tax relief and exemption amid COVID-19.
The report on tax collection of the first 6 months of 2019-2020 fiscal years was presented on the second day of second Pyidaungsu Hluttaw 17 regular session. There are 22 types of taxes the union ministries have to collect according to the Union Tax Law 2019. The estimated amount for the whole fiscal year is 7,969.398 billion yen, and that for the first 6 months from October October to March is 3,212.732 billion jets. The collected test for the first 6 months is accounted for 4,069.224 billion jets, so that the rate of test collection reaches 126.66% of the estimated tests. According to the test structure, the test collection of local products and local consumption amounted to 2,087.035 billion jets, which is accounted for 124.56% of the targeted amount. Tax on income and property is 1,373.91 billion jets, which is 158.69% of the targeted amount. The customs is accounted for 270.084 billion jets, which is 103.88% of the estimated amount. And finally, tax on natural resources of the country is accounted as 338.177 billion jets, which is 82.2% of the targeted amount. Uma Mawin, Deputy Minister for Planning, Finance and Industry, reported that.
公告22မျိုးကိုပြည်ထောင်စုဝန်ကြီးဌာန8ခုနဲ့နေပြည်တော်ကောင်စီတို့မှကောက်ခံခဲ့ပြီးတော့
22 kinds of taxes are collected by 8 ministries and Naypyidaw Council, and 7 taxes out of total number are collected by the Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry, which is accounted for 3,596.729 billion kyats. The contribution of the Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry towards the total tax collection is 88.39%. And 11.61% of total tax collection is done by the remaining 7 ministries and Naypyidaw Council, which collected tax of 472.495 billion kyats.
During 2018-2019 fiscal years, there are 15 kinds of taxes which exceeded the targeted amount and 7 failed to reach the targeted amount. The taxes not reaching the targeted amount include land tax, dam tax, operating telecommunication services tax, wine and natural gas tax, hydroelectric power fee, gemstone tax, and water tax. Myo-win, member of Joint Public Accounts Committee of Pyidaungsu Hluttaw, presented that.
2019-20ဘဏ္ဍာနှစ်ပထမ6လပတ်အတွက်ယာရချက်ပြည့်မီကျော်လွန်တဲ့အခွန်15မျိုးနဲ့အခွန်10မျိုးဟာ
Out of the 15 taxes exceeding the estimated amount, 8 taxes are collected over 120% of targeted amount. Among the taxes collected under the estimated amount, the gemstone tax, oil and natural gas tax, and tax on operating telecommunication services are estimated with a large amount, which is accounted for 1 trillion jets, so that more actions to collect these taxes are required.
The Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry reported that the tax collection for the whole fiscal year cannot meet the target amount because of tax realization and exemption due to COVID-19 outbreak.
ဒါတလို့ဖြစ်ပွားနေတဲ့ COVID-19 ကြောင့်နိုင်ငံတော်၏လူမှုစီးပွားရေးတရားလုံးပေါ်တက်ရောက်မှုဖြစ်ပေါ်မှုကိုကုစားနိုင်ရန်
To remedy the socio-economic impacts posed by the outbreak of COVID-19, the taxes are relaxed. The advanced income tax on export is exempt from April to September. For CMP enterprises, hotels and tourism industry, and MSMEs, which are mainly affected, the time limit for the commercial tax and income tax is expanded to the end of September. There is no commercial tax collected from necessary equipment for COVID-19 prevention, control and treatment. The cash donated to the COVID-19 fund by the businesses are defined as expenses from the profit. Because of all these matters, it is predicted that the total tax collection for the whole fiscal year will be lower than the targeted amount.
Although taxes are increased, the ratio of tax and GDP and that of tax and union government's expenses are decreasing. The Joint Public Accounts Committee suggested collecting the taxes to the full amount rather than increasing the tax rate. Besides the realization and exemption for the status affected by COVID-19, the committee also urged to collect the taxes from the remaining status to the fullest amount. News reported by Dora Suisin from Myanmar International Radio.
That's the report on tax collection of first 6 months of FY reported to Pyidaungsu Hluttaw. Moving on to our third report. COVID-19 continues to have a profound impact on varieties of businesses and sectors in different ways. In this case, including the automobile industry and the auto dealers industry. Our reporter David Tanner report will tell us more about how the automobile industry is changing drastically after the COVID-19's impact, as he explores the perspective of car dealers in Tan Du Mark Car Dealers compound.
For the auto industry, figuring out how to carry on during the building and changing chaos of the COVID-19 is a little like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces suddenly don't fit and picture keeps changing. With the current circumstances regarding what kind of changes has been occurring before and after the first wave of COVID-19 period, Also Miet, patron of Tan Du Mark Car Dealers compound, told MI Radio more about the related situations.
The problems for the auto sector had started shortly before COVID-19 even reared its head. If we were to compare current performance and sales, the market has been really stale. Before COVID-19, we could make at least reasonable sales per week or even per day in some scenarios. Even normal visitors to the car dealer's compound have been drastically decreased. The auto purchases have also been reconsidered by most of the buyers because of the taxes, as well as the current situations. Overall, these factors have been impacting the auto industry in a serious way in the period compared to the latter.
The automobile industry is a critical component of economic growth with extensive interconnections to upstream, for example, steel, chemical, and textiles, and downstream industries such as repair and mobility services. With all these COVID-19 unfortunate turns of events regarding what kind of vivid impact has been applied on the car dealers compound, Also Miet added on more about it.
During the outbreak of COVID-19, we have been forced to sell out the cars with sometimes no profit earned in terms of money that we have spent on buying the car. The time and effort that we have invested in it have been sometimes diluted with the situations. Even though we don't have definite answers for how we can solve these issues, we are still holding on to not lose ourselves with overinvestment at the present time. That is why we are being cautious about investing in next car after selling the one in our hand. So as expected, people tend to buy pickup cars these days, which are affordable and practical, like Hi-Jet.
The COVID-19 situation has had swift and severe impact. Symptoms include car dealers to have a hard time adapting on the current changes in price points, as well as forceful sales that makes the lesser price points deals becomes inevitable. Uzoji, working for auto buying and selling, also explained more about this.
As this period is the recovery period for the first wave of COVID-19, the auto market is in a stagnant and slow form. About 50% has been decreased in sale. For example, if we make like 6 deals before, we could only make like the utmost 3 deals. Apart from the difficulties of COVID-19, we have also been facing the problems of unstable policies relaxing taxes. Buyers and sellers have been waiting for the potential stabilization of taxes policy to make legit purchases and ease in buying and selling the processes.
Pyidaungsu, chairman of development committee of Tan Du Mark Car Dealers compound, also told MI Radio for how the market needs to endure for now to recover and regrow after all these unfortunate events.
Dealers can't prioritize to make profits anymore. They may have to prioritize for the long term in which they have to endure. Dealers have to sell even if they won't get as much profits now to recover their budget. We can expect a lot more for the auto industry if COVID-19 has been fully controlled in our country and if the schools, offices, and businesses fully reopen. It will recover, of course, but in slow and steady way.
Reporter David Tanner reporting from Myanmar International Radio.
That's the report on automobiles industry changing drastically after the COVID-19's impact. Let's move on to the last report for today. A group of companies operating in Myanmar from China have collaborated together and donated 2 units of negative pressure ambulance to the Department of Medical Research in Yangon. According to the report, the negative pressure ambulance is a rare ambulance in Myanmar, where there is only a handful of it. Willinson will tell us the full report.
A group of companies, namely BIAC Group, Photon, and IME International Company Limited, together donated 2 negative pressure ambulances to the Department of Medical Research in Yangon. And the handing ceremony of the ambulance was held on 16th of July at the Department of Medical Research, attended by officials from donating companies. Mr. Pyidaungsu Hluttaw, the Economic and Commercial Counselor of Chinese Embassy, Dr. Jordan Tun, Director General of the Department of Medical Research. According to the donors, each of these negative pressure ambulance is worth $43,000, and this sort of ambulance is very rare in Myanmar, making it one of the first hand ever in Myanmar. Speaking to the media about how important this donation is, Dr. Jordan Tun, Director General for the Department of Medical Research, said,
ဒီနေ့လူတန်းတဲ့အခမ်းအနားကတော့ဆရာတို့ခရိုင်းထူတန်းတာနဲ့နည်းနည်းလေးကွာခြားတာပေါ့နော်။ဒီနေ့ကတော့ဒီ COVID-19 ကာကွယ်ထိန်းချုပ်တိုက်ဖျက်ရေးဆိုတဲ့ကဏ္ဍမှာအများသော
The donation ceremony we hold today here is quite different from the previous donations we had. For the fight against COVID-19, we usually received other equipment such as PPE, mask, and testing kit. But what we have here today is quite different one, as one of the donors himself is a medical doctor as well, so he understands the importance of this ambulance in the fight against COVID-19. And I can say what has been donated today is actually what we are in need of. This negative pressure ambulance is designed especially for the patients who are suffering from respiratory disease, and COVID-19 is also one of the diseases which results in respiratory problem. As we are in the process of medical emergency service, providing this course to the medical students in some of the big cities in Myanmar, and we are progressing in it. So in this emergency medical service, the ambulance, the major role in it for the patient to be able to reach the hospital in time. Therefore, I would like to express my gratitude to the donors on behalf of the government.
Mr. Pyidaungsu Hluttaw, the Economic Counselor of Chinese Embassy, also spoke and said,
在疫情发生以来呢，缅甸的疫情发生以来，中国的政府和军队，通过各种方式给缅甸提供了一些。
I'm grateful to all the Chinese companies here in Myanmar which have been participating in the donation programs from the first case of the virus reported in Myanmar, helping in the fight against COVID-19 from what they can by donating. As far as I can remember, there have been around 130 donations done by the Chinese companies to both governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations. Under the guidance of the government and the help from China, I believe we can defeat COVID-19 soon.
The Department of Medical Research also made a statement saying that when the virus first hit Myanmar, by the end part of March, there was a sudden shortage of masks, PPE, and other medical equipment. However, the companies were always there to donate to the people in time of need, although those companies were also suffering from the same impacts financially, just like the public, but they still managed to donate. Dr. Ngin Yilat is the Chief Operation Officer of IME International Company Limited, and he also spoke to the media and said,
ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီကမ္ဘာမှာ COVID-19 ဆိုတဲ့ကပ်ရောဂါတစ်ခုပေါ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပေါ်လာတဲ့အခါမှာနိုင်ငံအသီးသီးက
After the outbreak of COVID-19, several countries all over the world are suffering the impacts of this virus greatly, And it was not exceptional for our country as well. So, when the country was in need of all the protective tools and supplies in the fight against COVID-19, we saw the donation by many organizations and even by the personal donation to the necessary areas. This is why we feel that we have our part to do in the fight against this virus as well. So we decided to donate this negative pressure ambulance, which we believe is a useful tool for the healthcare service. We all decided to donate negative pressure ambulance, which is quite rare in Myanmar.
This is Williamson for MI Radio.
That's the report on Group of Companies Donates Negative Pressure Ambulance. And now we move on to international news. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani on Thursday affirmed their country's commitment to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on Iran's nuclear program. The two leaders held a telephone conversation that focused on various issues, including the JCPOA. The Russian president called for preserving the Iranian nuclear deal while pledging that, as in the past 5 years, they will support the international documents and insist on implementing and preserving it. Rouhani reaffirmed Iran's commitment to the JCPOA and readiness for equal and constructive collaboration both with all of its signatories and within the IAEA. The Iranian leader appreciated Russia's support for the JCPOA as well as its opposition to the U.S. unilateral policies towards it. In their telephone conversation, President Putin and President Rouhani also discussed their country's fight against COVID-19, which continues to spread despite concerted global efforts to bring it under control. Germany's federal and regional governments on Thursday agreed on stricter lockdown measures in a bid to contain local outbreaks and ward off a second wave of COVID-19 infections. According to AFP, the new measures allow for a ban on travel in and out of the affected areas to limit the spread of the virus, according to an agreement adopted by federal and local authorities. The move comes as many countries around the world are reimposing lockdown measures in bids to stop a second spike in infections. As of Thursday afternoon, Germany had reported more than 201,000 COVID-19 cases and over 9,000 deaths, according to data from the U.S.-based Johns Hopkins University. The country aims to respond to new cluster with hyper-local lockdowns and rapid contact tracing and testing, rather than blanket lockdowns of whole towns or districts. The Earth just received the closest images taken of the sun on Thursday, which surprised scientists as countless little campfires are revealed for the first time. The photos were taken by Solar Orbiter, the spacecraft launched in February by the European Space Agency and NASA. The orbiter was about 48 million miles from the sun, about halfway between the Earth and the sun, when it took the stunning high-resolution pictures last month. Let's take a look.
We couldn't believe this when we first saw this, and we started giving it crazy names like campfires and dark fibrils and ghosts and whatever we saw. So there is so much new small phenomena going on the smallest scale that we are like starting a new vocabulary to give it all names.
These are clearly just the first test images, so it's too early to draw any scientific conclusions. But our conjecture is that these campfires and ghosts are related to changes in the sun's magnetic field, a process that is known as magnetic reconnection.
We need to know much more about the way the sun interacts with us back on Earth, and whether it's for electronics on Earth or whether it's for astronauts in near-Earth orbits. We still don't know a lot about how the sun really works. And by the instruments that we have on Solar Orbiter, we will be able to know much more.
That's all with the news and reports on Myanmar Today. Hope everyone is staying safe.